Grade 10s on Friday, you completed a summary in class in preparation for your group test on Monday. We didn't have a chance to go over your answers, so this video is for those of you who want to check your answer before the test. Remember that the IEB expects you to both reduce and recast a provided passage. Reducing is obvious. You have to shorten the provided texts to the word count stipulated in the question. In this one, your final paragraph must be no longer than 100 words. Recasting is trickier. You have to take the original texts and rewrite them in both a different format and voice for a particular purpose. A very useful acronym to keep in mind when recasting a text is FLAP. You must know in which format your answer must be. Typically, the IEB examiners ask you to write things such as the introduction or conclusion to a speech, an email, an open letter, or, as in this example that you have completed in class, a proposal. It's important that you know the formats of these different texts and that your answer looks like the required format. The second letter is for language. This is an academic exercise, so your language is expected to be of the highest level, with a sophisticated turn of phrase. The register of your writing is determined by the next letter, A for audience. If you are addressing matrics in a speech or writing for your blog, the register will be a tad informal. In a proposal to a teacher, as instructed in this exercise, your register should be quite formal and respectful. Never lose sight of the last letter, P for purpose. What are you hoping to achieve with your summary? In this example, you're hoping to persuade the school's director of boarding to follow your recommendations for a new policy regarding cell phones in the boarding house. Let's go back to your instructions. Make sure that you know what is being asked. The content of your summary must include two elements: reasons for reduced access to cell phones and your recommendations for a new cell phone policy in the school's boarding house. You have been given two texts and you must use both of them. I recommend that you use two highlighters, different colors. With one color, highlight the reasons for reduced access to cell phones, and with the second color, highlight any recommendations. Remember, this is not a transactional writing assessment. You are not being asked to give your personal recommendations or to express your opinions about cell phones. You may only use the information from these provided texts. Do not ignore any titles that are used in the texts. They are, of course, themselves summaries of the article. This one shows us the main idea. Sleeping aids our ability to remember things, and that's going to be the core of your summary. And did you notice what I did there? I restated the title in my own words. This is vital. You'll be heavily penalized if you lift phrases from the provided texts. This is what is meant by the question instruction, that you must not copy and paste from the text into your summary. A useful trick is to identify the topic sentence in each paragraph. The first paragraph is really just an explanation of the title, so I haven't taken anything from there. The next bit of information that is directly related to the question is this, in the third paragraph. Note that I didn't highlight the sentence that refers to sleep before learning. I've only highlighted information here about sleep after learning. Why? Well, because the question specifically asks for information related to reasons for reduced access to cell phones at night. In a school boarding house, the last study session is in the evening, after which everyone should go to bed. My next bit of highlighting comes from the 5th paragraph. I skip the information in paragraph 4 as it contains a fairly scientific definition of what REM sleep is. I've put that on the back burner for my summary, as I don't think it's essential to convince the director of boarding. In paragraph 5, we're told that non-REM sleep is essential for effective studying, and that if we don't get enough good quality sleep, we are unable to remember things effectively. And this does relate directly to access to cell phones at night. In the 7th paragraph, the author explains that our brains need time to work through every memory in an effort to file them in order of importance. In the 8th paragraph, the focus is on both the ability to solve problems and the self-regulation of emotions, both essential for the healthy mental development of teenagers. In the second text, there are a number of statistics. Generally, we caution you against using loads of stats and examples from the provided passages, but here there are two that would strengthen your summary. Research shows that a lack of sleep can cause you a learning deficit of almost 40%, and there's a recommended period of time for optimal sleep benefits, 7 to 8 hours. Both of these stats will strengthen your argument. Once you've highlighted the relevant information in the provided texts, you must put these thoughts on paper. Before writing, you should have a good idea of how many words you write per line. Most folk write approximately 8 to 10 words per line. If you have to write a summary of 100 words, you're looking at anything between 8 to 12 lines of writing. Here's my first attempt. Pause the video to read my draft. I wrote down what I think is important from the texts and then counted my words. I find it useful to put a mark after every 20th word. I was unsure whether to start my proposal with a greeting, like that in a letter, or a heading. After this first draft, I realized that I've written only 62 words. Clearly, the examiners wanted more information, as the maximum word count is 100 words. So I need to go back to this draft and add information from the texts, but in my own words. Remember that a digit counts as one word, as do hyphenated words. So if I submitted this draft, I wouldn't do well at all. The IEB rubric offers these two categories for average summaries. My first draft would probably fall into the 4.5 or 5 out of 10 range. I've taken relevant aspects from the text, but my emphasis and synthesis of information is wanting. Most of what I've written is appropriate for the task. My language is competent, but there are lapses, and it's very short, indicating that I must have left out important details. Before I write my second draft, it's wise to go back to the instructions. What have I missed? I have focused on the lack of sleep in my first draft, but not the reduced access to cell phones. And I also need to make clear that what I'm writing is a recommendation. Pause the video here to read the summary. It's much better. I've taken the very basic information from my first draft and focused on turning it into a recommendation specifically about the cell phones. This version is 97 words. Note that I haven't added information, but I have streamlined the examples. You may not add any general knowledge to summaries. For example, we're all aware that the blue light from our screens and the proximity of charging cell phones has a negative impact on people, but that is not mentioned in these articles at all. My second effort was much better, and it would fall into the very good range, getting a minimum of 8.5 out of 10. By the way, bear in mind the penalties that are included in the rubric. If you write too many words, we stop reading from 10 words over the count, in this assessment from 110 words. And whatever mark you achieved, you lose marks if you don't provide an accurate word count. And if you lie about the number of words, you also lose a mark. And yes, we do actually count the words on every single script. Remember that you have access to many years of IEB past papers on our shared drive. And it doesn't matter that you're in grade 10. These papers are the best preparation for you. And for Monday's test, refer to IEB paper 1's questions 2, 5, and 6. The marking guidelines are also in those folders. Well, that's it. If you put these principles into practice, the operative word being practice, you'll do well. Good luck, gents.